Hey, what's up? My name is Alex, and welcome to English Rewind, Listening and Reading Comprehension. Today, we've got another short piece that we're going to work through. It's called The Abandoned City. It's on my English Rewind newsletter number 15, but let's get into it. Okay, The Abandoned City. Basic English. The city was quiet. Its streets were empty. There weren't any people. What happened here? John thought to himself. It was only a day late. Had everyone already left? What went wrong? Okay. The city was quiet and its streets empty. There wasn't a person in sight. The only sound that could be heard was that of the occasional bird flying overhead. What happened here? John thought to himself. He had arrived only a day late. Could everyone have left so quickly? The message he had received 3 days ago seemed urgent. Could things really have gotten this bad? What on earth went wrong? Okay, so this guy, he arrived in the city and everyone's gone. He wants to know what's going on. But I'll get back to talking about this just now. Let's just quickly look at the keywords. The first one was in sight, which we saw here with there wasn't a person in sight. So in sight means visible or can be seen. So when we say there wasn't a person in sight, that means no one could be seen. There wasn't anyone there that could be seen. No one was in sight, because when you look at things, when you see, that's called your sight, your eyes. So no one was in sight. No one could be seen. In the example sentence, we see, we had been driving for many hours, but the city was finally in sight. So what this means is they had been, there we go. They had been driving for many hours and they were driving towards the city. They had been driving for many hours, but finally the city was in sight. So after driving for many hours, they were finally able to see the city with their eyes. Okay. Occasional, which means not often. We saw it here with the only sound that could be heard was that of the occasional bird flying overhead. So occasional means sometimes, not often. So when you say the occasional bird, you saw the occasional bird flying, that means you didn't see many birds flying. You sometimes saw a bird flying overhead, the occasional one. Sometimes I saw a bird, sometimes I didn't, just occasionally. So basically, occasionally means not often or sometimes. In the example sentence, we have, I'm on a diet. I only occasionally eat pizza. So that means I only sometimes eat pizza, or I don't very often eat pizza, just sometimes. So occasionally. The hotel was almost empty. It had only the occasional guest. So the hotel wasn't completely empty. It was almost empty because it had a few guests, meaning the occasional guest, meaning some guests, a few guests, not many, just sometimes, some guests. So occasional is just not always, but more like sometimes, or not always, not often, just sometimes. Well, yeah, not often. So when I say occasional means not often, that basically means it's not always. It just happens sometimes. So not often, just sometimes. The next word was overhead, which was in the same sentence. The only sound that could be heard was that of the occasional bird flying overhead. So overhead is just above your head, or in the sky. So the occasional bird flying overhead means I sometimes saw a bird flying above in the air. So the only sound that could be heard was that of the bird sometimes flying above in the air. That's what that means. So overhead here, we see there was a group of birds flying overhead. which just means the person might have looked up to the sky and he saw birds flying in the sky above his head. So overhead in the sky, above his head. That's overhead. There were clouds appearing overhead, meaning there were clouds in the sky. So it's this word isn't too difficult to understand what it means if you just look at the words over your head, above your head, in the sky. Seem. This might be a not too difficult word. It was seen here in the message he had received 3 days ago seemed urgent. When we talk about seem, that means like something looks like something or it appears to be something. So if I, like in the example sentence, I say, you seem angry, that means you look angry. Are you angry? You appear to be angry. So to seem angry means you kind of look angry. Or all my money seems to have been stolen. So it appears that all my money has been stolen, or it looks like all my money has been stolen. So seem in these sentences means looks like or appears. It appears all my money has been stolen. It appears or it seems like, all my money seems to have been stolen. All my money looks like it has been stolen. All my money appears to have been stolen. Then the last one was urgent, which is something that's very important or serious, because we saw it in the same sentence. No, not the same sentence. The same sentence. The message he had received 3 days ago seemed urgent. So urgent is important, serious. So the message he had received 3 days ago looked serious. Next 2 example sentences here with urgent would be, I need to urgently speak to you. So when you say you need to urgently speak to someone, that means it's very serious. You need to quickly speak to someone. You need to speak to them as soon as possible because there might be something serious that you need to talk about. So urgent means important, serious. The other sentence was, my call to the hospital was urgent. So urgent, once again, urgent means important, serious. So let's say your friend is very sick and you think he's busy dying. So that's a very urgent situation. So when you call the hospital, it's also a very urgent call because the situation is serious, because you think your friend is dying. So my call to the hospital was very serious. It was important. It was urgent because my friend is sick. I think he's dying. Okay, let's quickly go through this again. The city was quiet and its streets empty. Very simple sentence. There weren't any people in the city, so the city was quiet. And the streets were empty because there weren't any people. There wasn't a person in sight. So this person was in the city where it was quiet and the streets were empty. There weren't any people. No one was in sight. There wasn't a person in sight. There wasn't a person that could be seen. I couldn't see anyone. No one was in sight. The only sound that could be heard, so it was quiet, but the only thing the person heard was the occasional bird flying overhead. So sometimes there were birds flying in the sky and they made a noise. So that was the only sound he heard while he was in this city that was empty. That of the occasional bird flying overhead and perhaps screaming. Do birds scream? I don't think birds scream. Tweeting or singing or something or making a noise. That was the only sound that could be heard. So he thought to himself, what happened here? He doesn't know. He's in the city that's empty and quiet. There's no one. There's not a person in sight. No one can be seen. I mean, he had arrived only a day late. So I had arrived only a day late. By this, he means that he had planned to be there a day earlier. So if today was the 12th of October, then he meant to be there on the 11th of October. So he was a day late. Could everyone have left so quickly? So something was going on in the city, and for some reason, people were leaving the city. People were leaving the city. But he didn't think people were going to leave the city so quickly. The message he had received 3 days ago seemed urgent. So he had received a message about the city. I mean, something was going on in the city, and he had received a message that was very urgent. It was an important message. It was a serious message. And that's why he quickly came to the city. Because of the message he had received, he came to the city. Could things really have gotten this bad? So in the message talked about something was going on in the city. There was a very urgent, serious thing going on in the city that caused the people to leave the city. And he quickly had to go to the city to perhaps help or do something. But he was too late. Everyone was already gone. So he's thinking to himself, what on earth went wrong? Okay, so that was The Abandoned City, English Rewind newsletter number 15. I hope it was helpful. I hope it was useful. Please don't forget to leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I missed something, if I didn't explain something properly. And yeah, until next time, cheers.